Has anybody been keeping up with or even heard about the scandal in Mississippi involving the misappropriation of millions of taxpayer dollars in the welfare program to go towards the construction of a volleyball stadium at the University of Southern Mississippi, and to be put into Brett Favre's and his wife's incorporation. Have you heard about this one? I know the media has glossed over it. They talked about it. But I wanted to give my own unique perspective about this. Because there's a lot of things that can be said about this. Let me begin with this. This scandal is proof positive that systemic racism exists in this country. Let me explain why. Brett Favre is the legendary Green Bay Packers quarterback. I remember rooting against Brett Favre every time he would play the Chicago Bears. Lambeau Field, Soldiers Field. But I really respected Brett Favre as a quarterback. He's one of the greatest. If he's not in the Hall of Fame, he really should be. He's a damn good quarterback. Does anybody remember the famous line by Peter Parker in Spider-Man, his uncle? I'm paraphrasing, but I think it's close to an exact quote. He says, with great power comes great responsibility. Well, let's analyze whether with all the power that Brett Favre has in our society, whether he utilized it responsibly or not. I'll let you be the judge. I'm just going to tell you how I see it. We're all aware now of Jackson, Mississippi having the water situation. But that's been going on since forever. Decades it's been a problem. So Brett Favre, born and raised in Mississippi, Hattiesburg, which is a stone's throw away from Jackson. So he's got to know all about the residents of Jackson and the hardship they've been going through. After all, Mississippi is the poorest state in the Union. It's probably the most racist in terms of historical events that have happened throughout our nation's history. And yet, a legendary quarterback, born and raised in Mississippi, did he ever give back? This is a question nobody's asked, but I'm asking it. Did he ever give back to the residents and citizens of Jackson, Mississippi? let's be frank and honest. What Brett Favre did was plain old theft. He took money that was allocated for poor and needy families in Mississippi, which there are many. And he spent that money to construct an inanimate object. Think about that. A stadium at the University of Southern Mississippi, a volleyball stadium, was more important to Brett Favre than the 150,000 residents who have lived in severe and abject poverty for decades in his state. Just something to think about. Let that sink in for a moment. An inanimate object was something Brett Favre advocated for millions of dollars of welfare money to be diverted from. He knew this money was coming from the welfare program in Mississippi, TANF. He knew that that money goes, supposedly, is billed to go towards the poorest residents in Mississippi. And yet, he actively pursued diverting that funding for the poorest people in the state to go towards building an inanimate object. Because his daughter was going to play her freshman year at the volleyball stadium. So the volleyball stadium and the construction of it had more value than the 150,000 people without clean drinking water in Jackson, Mississippi, to Brett Favre. And to the person who was running the agency to distribute the welfare money. Let's not leave her out. Nancy knew. She was in charge of the agency to disperse the welfare money. And she was coordinating with the University of Southern Mississippi, so they knew too. Then Governor Phil Bryant, he was also responsible. He knew as well. So it was the entire whole of government approach to defraud the poor residents of Mississippi of desperately needed money. Now think about this. How many people, one, could have been helped with those millions of dollars that they spent to construct the stadium? And then two, how many people lost their life because they didn't get the resources they needed because that stadium was built? Those are two important questions. They require answers from former Governor Phil Bryant, from Nancy Newman, from the University Athletic Department at University of Southern Mississippi, from Brett Favre. And then we don't know to the extent what Tate Reeves, the current governor, knew. But they all look chummy. Phil Bryant, Tate Reeves, and Brett Favre in that photo, didn't they? They all knew. This is what systemic racism in America looks like. So whenever somebody says it does not exist, You just tell them Brett Favre stole what we know of at least $8 million from needy families to construct a stadium and to give speeches that he never gave. All while residents, mostly black residents in Jackson, Mississippi, had unclean, dirty water. The state of Mississippi told residents in Jackson to shower with their mouth closed. Who's responsible for that? Brett Favre, then Governor Phil Bryant, Nancy New, University of Southern Mississippi Athletics Department. They're responsible. You say why? $77 million was mismanaged that we know of the welfare money. Brett Favre took a good sizable portion of it. But when you have $77 million being mismanaged, when the city of Jackson said that they needed a pump replaced at the OBM wastewater facility that cost them maybe around $47 million. Well, there you go. They stole $77 million. The new pump that Jackson, Mississippi had been begging for years would have cost $47 million. So the residents of Jackson, Mississippi could have had clean drinking water all this time. But nobody gave a damn about the residents of Jackson, Mississippi. We all know why. I'm going to say it. They're poor and they're black. And if you happen to be those two things in this country, nobody gives a fuck about you. But it goes deeper because Brett Favre is a political person. Very much so. He campaigned for Phil Bryant. He campaigned for Tate Reeves. He met with him. He's been pictured on the golf course, giving the thumbs up with the lunatic from Mar-a-Lago, also known as Donald Trump. Huge supporter of Donald Trump. Here's how you do politics, how I would have done it if I cared. Ask yourself this, how many people get to meet? Let me rephrase it. How many citizens of this country get to meet the President of the United States? Small percentage. An even tinier percentage go golfing with the President of the United States. Go back to Peter Parker's uncle. With great power comes great responsibility. Remember, he told Peter Parker this. So, when Brett Favre was pictured on that golf course with Donald Trump, my first thought was not, oh, I hate Donald Trump, therefore I hate Brett Favre. No. Actually, my first thought was this. Brett Favre doesn't give a shit about Jackson, Mississippi. Because had it been me standing there with any president, and I come from the poorest state in the Union, And I know full well what's happening in Jackson, Mississippi. I'm going to use that opportunity to advocate for the people that I claim I care about, that I grew up with. You know, all these people will tell you they're Christian. Many of you know I'm not. I don't fuck with cults and religions. Any of that shit. But doesn't it say love thy neighbor? Here it is, someone from Hattiesburg, Mississippi, knows what's going on in Jackson. Pictured standing shoulder to shoulder with the president. And I guarantee you he didn't say a damn thing about Jackson and their water crisis. He didn't say, Mr. President, Jackson needs some repair work. Those residents have been poor for decades in this country. You have to do something about this. He didn't say a damn thing to advocate for Jackson, Mississippi. It would have cost him nothing. You're standing right next to the president. That doesn't cost you a damn penny. To say these people are American citizens. They deserve fresh, clean drinking water. You're president. Make it happen. It wouldn't have cost him a damn thing. If he cared. Go back to what I said in the video about the water facility. I said the biggest issue was gross and severe neglect. Willful neglect. Meaning people knew and didn't give a fuck. Brett Favre knew. He doesn't give a damn. Can you imagine how many people grew up in Jackson admiring Brett Favre as a quarterback? Probably still to this day. Now only to find out that he defrauded them of their money that they were entitled to. They live in abject poverty. I'm talking about conditions that are unimaginably grotesque. And Brett Favre met with governors of the state of Mississippi, met with presidents of the United States, and he did jack shit for Jackson, Mississippi. You know, people post up videos of these quote-unquote Karens spazzing out, saying racist things like the N-word, or giving black people a hard time, Latino people a hard time, doing stupid racist shit. And they'll make that more important than the real racist people in our society. Those people are just assholes. They don't have power to direct financing, move institutions. Brett Favre had power to move institutions to lend millions of dollars. So the next time you see one of those Karens going off on the airplane, yes, she's a douchebag. She's an asshole. But she's not more racist, I guarantee you. 9 out of 10 times, she's not more racist than people like Brett Favre. and Phil Bryant and Donald Trump. Those are the people who systematically have been controlling this country, ensuring that entire groups of people remain impoverished in this country. Utilizing the system to steal from them. That money was intended for the poor residents of Jackson, Mississippi. And Brett Favre played Robin Hood. He stole from the poor to give to the rich. The University of Southern Mississippi, in Hattiesburg, they could have constructed that. It would have taken them a long time, granted. But they could have paid for a new volleyball stadium. They didn't need to steal the kind of money from the poor people of Jackson, Mississippi. But you know why they stole the money? Because they don't give a fuck about the poor people in Jackson, Mississippi. An inanimate object like a stadium has more worth and value than the 150,000 mostly black people living in Jackson, Mississippi. Did you see the video where the resident from Jackson, Mississippi turned on the water faucet and it was dark brown liquid coming out of the faucet in the United States of America? Dark brown liquid for weeks, 7 weeks this time. This time it was 7 weeks. Previous times it had been months. One woman said she moved down to Jackson, Mississippi in 1991, and everyone when she got down there told her, don't drink the water. She turned it on and she said it smelled like chlorine. There needs to be prosecutions. Individuals need to go to prison. You notice there's a lot of hypocrisy here. When Hollywood elites were getting their kids into prestigious universities on scholarships, and they didn't even really qualify for those scholarships. Conservative commentators all across America demanded that those people be in prison. And some of them did go to jail. But their lips have been zipped about this in Mississippi. Now, the college scandal was taking scholarships from people who might have really needed them to get your kid into a prestigious university. This is taking money that's earmarked for the poorest people in Mississippi to build a stadium. Conservatives are silent all across America. I say keep that same goddamn energy. Keep that same goddamn energy. Where's Donald Trump Jr. calling for Brett Favre to go to jail? Like he did Lori Loughlin. Where's Eric Erickson calling for Brett Favre to go to prison and Phil Bryant to go to prison? This, my friends, is how systemic racism works in this country. This is how it truly works. I know they tell you America is not a racist country. And systemic racism is all a figment of your imagination. It's an illusion. I had one of these fucking son of a bitches tell me it's an illusion. I'm delusional. Well, now, bitch, I got proof. I mean, I'm upset. People have had to wallow in misery for centuries in Mississippi because of men like Brett Favre stealing from them to enrich themselves when they're supposedly already wealthy. You know, conservatives like the late Rush Limbaugh used to rag all the time about welfare queens who sat around collecting checks to buy big steaks. Has anybody mentioned that Brett Favre is a multi-millionaire? I don't know if he still is. Maybe he wasted all of his money. I don't care. I don't know. But I know he was paid millions and millions and millions of dollars to play football for a long time, years in the league. And you're telling me he needed to steal $1.1 million from Tanith? He was supposed to give motivational speeches. He never gave them. Why? Because he doesn't care about poor people, especially in Jackson. This is how you can tell that racism is baked deep into the fabric of this nation. The governor, Tate Reeves, just recently made a kind of sneering kind of remark about Jackson. He said it's good to be in Hattiesburg and not in Jackson. Any day outside of Jackson is a good day for him, he said. Bear in mind, Jackson is the capital of Mississippi. It's the capital city. But because Jackson is 80% black, he doesn't want to be there. Now, Mississippi is 60% white, 40% black. He'd much rather be in Hattiesburg, where those black people are. He doesn't have to say, I don't want to be where the black people are. You just have to read in between the lines. If certain people have clean drinking water and other people have dirty water that they're instructed to close their mouth when they're showering, what do you think that is? In some people's mind, it's not racism. It's just a coincidence. The only problem with the "it's just a coincidence" ideology is kind of this. That pretty much anywhere you go in this country, the most impoverished people happen to be black. Ask yourself, in a country where African Americans pretty much built the entire nation for free, after being in a country for centuries, how is it that they're still the most impoverished in a nation they built? If racism, systemic racism doesn't exist, ask yourself, how does that happen? How does such a thing occur? Can you give me an example of such a thing happening anywhere else? No, you can't. I want to see Brett Favre go to prison. It wasn't just a few text messages. This went on for years. They have text messages from 2017 to 2019. He knew full well he was defrauding Tanner. But he's a privileged white male. So he might not go to jail. And then people talk about, why don't you show more patriotism for the nation? I will show whatever you deem to be patriotism when you actually abide by what you stated, liberty and justice for all. Now, do you think in Jackson, Mississippi, that they have liberty and justice? Do you think in the state of Mississippi it's liberty and justice for all? We all know it's not. So I'm not going to be a cheerleader for delusions and illusions of a republic that only exists in the most privileged people's minds because they usurp it from everyone else and then fly a flag. Well, you damn well should fly the flag. You've received all the benefits. We have to do better. We can't just say it's the United States and then there's nothing uniting about what happens in the country. Mississippi is a tale of two entirely different states inside of one state. It's a divided state. If you live in Jackson, you have dirty drinking water. If you live in Hattiesburg, your water is pristine and clean. If you live in Jackson, you live in abject poverty. If you live in Hattiesburg, you're in poverty, but you own a home. This is the quintessential American story. Not giving a damn about your own citizens. And then saying, I love America. Yeah, you love America, but you don't love all Americans. So stop saying you love the country, but you don't love all the citizens in the country. That makes no sense to me. You'll hear people say that, I love the country. And then the next thing out of their mouth will be something critical about their citizens. I don't know how your brains work like that. But mine doesn't function that way. You can't say you love a country, but are accepting that residents in your country have dirty water to drink for decades. Everyone in Mississippi knew about South Jackson, Mississippi. It's been going on forever. It's been so horrible that people left Mississippi to move up north with better conditions. Can you imagine leaving everyone you know to come to a place that you've never been? Because the place you're currently living is so horrible. That's what people did. The Great Migration from Mississippi to Chicago, to Detroit, to Cleveland, to Milwaukee. It was Black Americans who made big cities big cities because they had to get the fuck out of Dodge. And the people who couldn't leave are in year 2022 being told to shower with their mouth closed. This is physical and psychological torture orchestrated by the United States government towards their own citizenry. Just something to think about. Tell me, why don't I fly an American flag? Fuck you. When the country wants to be united, I'll be here. Probably won't still fly the flag, do any of that Pledge of Allegiance, or listen to any Christian fundamentalist bullshit. But it'll be nice to actually have a united country. I don't think that's going to happen though. Sadly. Because you have Americans like Brett Favre who have no empathy for people, his neighbors that he grew up around. He'd rather have a construction of a volleyball stadium than residents of Jackson, Mississippi have clean drinking water. Now wrap your mind around that. Let me repeat. Brett Favre would rather have a construction of an inanimate object, a volleyball stadium, than to have the residents of Jackson, Mississippi have clean drinking water. Spare me. I don't want to hear about the liberty and justice for all. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. I don't want to hear that shit. Because I know it's just blah, blah, blah. Coming from people who are not qualified to be in charge of anything, let alone a nation. Maybe when we replace all or most of the people who have been running this country, maybe, just maybe then, I can find some space somewhere in my body to finally be proud of the country. But until that day occurs, I'm going to keep reading folks the Riot Act. Jackson, Mississippi, push the fucking line. If you're down in Mississippi and Jackson, push the line on those bastards. Don't let them off the hook. You know, we need truth and reconciliation in this country. I'll say it until I'm blue in the fucking face. You're not going to repair this nation seriously until you do reparations. The people in Jackson, Mississippi definitely deserve it. The people who experienced the Tulsa race massacre definitely deserve it. The people who had to put up with the Alabama church school bombing, they definitely deserve it. All the people who have experienced Jim Crow, segregation, they definitely deserve it. Push the line, Jackson, Mississippi. Push the line. Don't let those bastards off the hook. No matter what.